put that in Skype rooms and shit so that people can be like, hey, I can watch now.
Yes, this was supposed to happen at 8 o'clock, but oh well. I think
Yes,
it's
we
funny
are
is like,
an hour and 10 minutes late.
yeah, but it's okay. I only have to, I have to catch a train at like noon, but like it's not even like a big thing. It's the it's the Baltimore Metro. It's gonna be like 30 minutes late anyway. As I just revealed where I live, even though I tell people anyway. It's actually funny, in one of my videos, I even said, like, as a bunch of like police sirens come flying by my window, and then literally for like the past like next like 3 minutes, there was nothing but sirens. I'm just like, everyone's just gonna think I'm on it living at like the set of The Wire.
I can watch now. Okay, that's up, and I'm gonna put that in there so that people can come see.
Because obviously they'd want to.
Of course, who wouldn't want to see my half-assed, like, I don't comb my hair or anything bullshit.
And me after like, oh yeah, I've been out all day and it's been raining, so I didn't do any of my makeup at all.
I'm not. Because here's the thing, I work graveyard shifts regularly, and so I'm not usually awake until like 10 o'clock maybe.
Oh.
I don't know, but it keeps fluctuating because my body just decides sometimes, you're not gonna go to sleep until about like 4 in the afternoon. Or sometimes it'll just be tired as hell by like 9 a.m. Like it's never consistent. That's
I'm not looking forward to once the semester ends, I'm going to be doing an internship with a Fortune 500 company. The only problem is I have to get up at like 5:30 in the morning for this. I'm not looking forward to that because I don't even have to get up that early now. That's another thing I find so funny about, like, once I got rid of social media, I was actually like, I'm going to do networking and stuff like that so I can meet people and have a career.
That sounds like a good idea. LinkedIn is really good for that.
Like, yeah, that's why I have a LinkedIn.
I never realized how like useful LinkedIn is for networking before. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's like our college, like they have a whole course where it's like you have to do networking, you have to learn how to write a resume, and they also make you create your own LinkedIn page. And you have to use it. Like, it's not like you create it and you get a grade and that's it. No, they actually, like, you create it in the beginning of the semester and you have to like meet people through LinkedIn. And that's actually how I got my internship. But I love how like we work, like I like said, like, oh yeah, let's talk about things like transgender rights and social media and like other things that irk me. It's like people who think they understand like business and stuff like that and think that's like all greedy capitalism and globalization is horrible and evil, and it's like you don't actually understand it.
I just watched have you seen the Adam Ruins Everything TV series?
No, I have cable, but I never use it.
It's on True TV. It's on Tuesday nights, and it's fantastic. It has a great theme song. It's really catchy. And I think the last episode was about work.
Yeah.
Adam Ruins work. And he went over a bunch of stuff. One of the main things he went over was the fact that 5-day, 40-hour work weeks are almost entirely non-essential. And as far as salary workers go, it would be more productive if they actually had 4-day work weeks with less hours while still being paid the same. Because according to him, and according to the sources that he cited, the fact of the matter is the more you work, the more overworked you are, and the more overworked you are, the less productive you are, and the less time you have to yourself, the more you're going to be lethargic at work, and you're not actually going to do anything. According to current studies, Salary workers, at the very least, only actually spend about 45% of their time at work working.
Doing work.
Yeah.
That's actually funny. We have a whole HR class about that. And what I found so funny is like I was like kind of seeing this girl who was like complaining about globalization and like how, oh, it's destroying local cultures and stuff like that. I'm like, you do know that like one of the things, like if you're Coca-Cola, you have to respond to is local culture. Like you can't just show up and go, here's Coke, buy it. No,
you have to somehow integrate yourself as far as like marketing is concerned. You can't just like,
not only that, your products, like Coca-Cola tried to sell Minute Maid in China, it failed completely because they're so used to stuff that's more percent juice. Now it's more expensive to make something that's like 100% juice. So what they did is they made this product called Pulpy, is like what it translates to in English, and it's like 25% juice, and it's sold better. You know, you have to tailor to local taste. Like it's not you're going to just completely destroy a culture. Like cultural tastes are going to be there, so you have to respond to it. There's a reason McDonald's doesn't sell beef in India.
And one of the other things he went over was internships. Apparently, according to data, the majority of internships done today are actually illegal, according to the Department of Labor. Um, I don't exactly know what the exact number of it is, but basically, if you're on an unpaid internship and you're asked to do actual work and not just observe, and you're treated like staff, then it's an illegal internship.
Yeah, I've only had one paid internship. Even the one that I'm doing, that I'm going to be doing over the winter, that's not paid. But I'm pretty much, from what I've gathered, I'm going to be doing an observation. At least that's what they say there on the job description.
Yeah, it has to just be observation and just be learning if it's unpaid. Otherwise, they're breaking the law. The other thing is that if they hire you on as freelance, but then treat you like a full-time worker, that's also illegal.
Yeah, it's actually funny. A lot, like I have a whole class on business law. Like when it comes to courts, let's say I'm an independent contractor and I hit somebody with a company van. Just because I'm labeled as an independent contractor doesn't mean that I'm personally liable for the injuries, for the negligence.
Yeah, it's still the company's property.
Well, no. If I'm found to be a contractor in the eyes of the court, then yes. But they have a test. Like, how am I there for a set length of time? Like, I'm only there on a contract. Then yeah, chances are I'm an independent contractor. But if they're giving me X amount of pay and treating me like an employee,
right?
Then they're going to go, no, this is shenanigans. No. You can't.
Yeah. You're like the companies, the people who are setting your hours, for instance. They're not letting you adjust in any way. They're paying you on like maybe an hourly basis as opposed to a previously agreed contract amount.
Sure. Yeah.
Wide variety of things. If they treat you like a full-time worker, it doesn't really matter that you yourself are a contractor or freelance. And if they call you a contractor and freelance while treating you like a full-time worker instead, then they're going against the law, basically.
Yes, and that's why it's a problem.
And I think the most interesting thing to me was when he pointed out that 5-day work weeks were something that were kind of invented in the past century, which that much I knew. I didn't know that they were invented by Henry Ford, mostly. That he was the one who basically started that shit. He's like, now don't get me wrong, Henry Ford doesn't really care about you or anybody else. In fact, he's an asshole. And they had like an actor playing Henry Ford being like, by the way, have I told you my theory about the Jews? And he said, basically, Henry Ford realized one thing. If everyone's working 6 days a week, nobody has time to go out and buy his cars. That was his thought. Which is true.
Yeah, you can't have them work all the time. And you can't have them work all the time if you want them to be productive. Like, one of the things that we had to talk about, like, since my major is international business, my specialization is globalization and dealing with multinational firms. It's why, like, the company that picked me up is very interested in me because I'm multilingual. So they're actually recruiting me actively. Like, that's why I have the position that I did. And they told me outright, it's like, hey, if you come work for us once you're graduated, we'll pay for you to go to grad school. Like, we'll do this and that. And there's reasons they do that. It's because they want to get the best talent. And so if let's say the firm I'm going into is the automotive industry, let's say, I'm going to work for Ford, but all of a sudden Hyundai comes along and says, hey, we're going to pay for you to go to grad school if you come work for us, or we're going to send you to a country besides the United States to work. Well, guess what? That's what I want, so I'm going to jump ship. So that's why they give you those perks.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they want to keep people.
I think they also went over the fact that most office perks are just kind of like aesthetic things that don't really matter, that more save the company a shit ton of money because it gives them an excuse not to pay you as much.
Yeah, a lot of that can be true. So it depends on the perks.
Like I'm not talking about like 401ks and retirement plans and stuff and dental plans and stuff like that. I'm more talking about like we have a ping pong table in the office and we also have a Wii set up in the break room, blah, like shit like that. Like,
oh yeah, that's the thing is that's funny is like I would at no point want to have that stuff at work. Like I work
like,
in
okay, that's gonna help me at all. To get my job.
Exactly. Like I work in an office like during the weekdays, and like at no point am I sitting there like in the middle of doing like analysis on social media for like our school or like and stuff like that. At no point do I go, I really want to play a fake bowling game right now.
Yeah.
That's what I really want to do. like my goal is just to get this done, do all the analysis on it, print out the report, and just drop it on my boss's desk. Like, that's all I care about.
Now, on the flip side, there are some things they can do around the office to improve the aesthetics that actually do also help worker productivity, like, for instance, allowing people to listen to music to a certain extent, depending on the context. Because if you're in an office, for instance, then nobody wants you, like, blaring your radio. But allowing people to basically, if you're on a computer and you're doing analysis work, you can listen to an iPod, you're way more focused. Like, according to any study I've ever seen on the matter. Which is funny because like every job I like not every job, but several jobs that I've had, the people in charge basically are under the impression that music causes people to be distracted from their work as opposed to actually doing their work. So they are entirely against anybody listening to it for any one reason. Even though I would go out, I would find studies saying the opposite, show them to my bosses, and then they go, yeah, well, that's not how we do things around here. And I'm like, Jesus, it doesn't really help.
The thing that's funny is like it depends on what kind of music or what I'm listening to. Like, if I'm writing a paper, what I actually like to do is listen to different documentaries, and that actually helps me focus. But if I'm listening to like a song that I really like, at no point do I focus. I'm just like sitting there, like pretending to sing along to Beyonce or Adele or something like that. That's what ends up happening. So I'm not. It depends on for me.
Listener. I listen to Adele too. I don't listen to Beyonce as much. So I don't know. But yeah.
No, I find that very interesting to me. It's funny, like the thing that improved my morale is like I went from one department at my school to another, and I'm much happier at the other department, even though my hours are less, and like I'm technically making less at the end of the week just because I'm in the new shiny building. It's like I have windows.
I can see things. I don't feel
I'm not like a concrete, like cinder block wall lined cubicle.
Feeling like you're in a prison cell without bars,
Yes. And there's no offense because I liked where I worked too, and I liked the work that I did there. But it's still like the thing that's funny is like I like this work more than I liked working in restaurants, even though my pay is much less and in terms of like in total, just because it's like I'm actually doing adult things.
Mm-hmm. So, blah. We've been talking about like a bunch of random
things
for the last like 14 minutes. So I think the main thing, let's get into something that you want to talk about, like specifically, something that you usually do.
Did you look at my new channel at all, or?
Yes. So you're currently in the middle of
My
according,
transition.
yeah, your transition. Um, how far along are you? Like,
On December 14th, I go to the endocrinologist and I'll be getting my hormones prescribed.
mhm.
Um, and on December 7th, assuming no one filed an affidavit against me, which I have not been told that I have so far yet, my legal name change will be gone through. So I'll legally be Sophia Michelle and then my last name.
Awesome.
So I consider myself pretty far along, all things considered.
That's fantastic. So you're actually not too far away, honestly.
I quit YouTube in like the middle of it because like for one thing, I ended up finding out that it was intersex like in the middle of it, and like all this other weird stuff coming. I'm like, this is like I'm not sure how comfortable I am going into all of this, and so like I don't plan on like going into like okay, here's how I'm intersex. Like I think I mentioned like I don't have a Y chromosome, and that's about as far as I'm going to go on like on YouTube in terms of public. Like with my friends, they know what's going on with me because they're close to me. They're people I talk with, and like they're people who kind of help me deal with the fact that like I had medical records hidden from me, which is kind of crappy. Like,
so I'm gonna try and get into a little bit of your mindset here. So as I understand it, for I guess the majority of your life up to now, is it? Would you say that your understanding of your own, I guess gender status would be the word. That was not something that was made on a conscious level to you until fairly recently.
well, I did struggle with it a lot when I
Mhm.
think about it. Like I remember getting yelled at by my parents for like playing with my sister and my mother's makeup, trying on their clothes. I remember I asked to take ballet, and my father's response was to buy me a go-kart and make me race go-karts. Like I basically, and then to make me take karate, or well, it's Tong Sudo, but still, you know, should not do that insult and say the wrong thing. But yeah, anyway, I love how you're just blowing rings into the camera.
Well, I am listening to you. I also got a comment on from St. Patty's Day Massacre asking if I'm vaping, and he called me a goober. So I decided to blow some rings in response.
But no, I like for me, I felt like masculine was being forced on me, and I really didn't understand how to be masculine because like there are parts of me that are masculine. I can understand that. Like I do like cars and things like that. Things that are traditionally masculine. But I often felt like I was having something forced on me that didn't feel right, and so it often made me feel incredibly unhappy. I also felt like I had to lie about myself in terms of what my interests were, in terms of how I actually was as a person, because ultimately I was lying to not only other people but ultimately to myself. And especially became apparent to me that something was wrong when I would basically like during puberty, because all of a sudden like, oh my god, I have all this body hair and I don't want it. Like, why do I not have boobs? Like, why? Well, it ended up turning out I ended up growing boobs when I was like 13, but like they never got big or anything.
Right.
So yeah. And like the thing is, like I felt uncomfortable having like a penis as a child, but like I never really focused on it because as a kid, like you're not really bringing up your genitals to your friends, which all my friends growing up were women, like were girls. I didn't hang out with guys until like my parents like were like making me do that.
That's such a strange paradox as far as like socialization as a young child goes, wherein like boys are expected to hang out with boys as opposed to girls. I It's strange because the masculinity of society is that guys are supposed to be very sociable with women and be very capable of interacting with them on a social level, and yet like the encouragement as far as masculinity is concerned is not to do that until like your later teenage years, like
Yeah,
which
I don't understand that at all either.
it's such a strange thing to me, and to be honest, I think part of it probably has to do with the expectation that all the male sociability as far as being social with women goes, is supposed to be going towards like sexual intercourse, not actual friendliness. Like,
Yeah,
I think that reinforces it that you're not allowed to be social with them until you are at that level that you can approach them sexually. Like,
and the thing is too is like I think it also socializes people in a way that's like, well, if you're a guy, you're not supposed to hang out with women because like and do things with them because that's considered a sign of weakness. Like that's a bad thing. It sends
unless you're at the age of like 16 through like your early 20s, now it's awesome that you're able to hang out with a bunch of women. Like,
exactly.
it's so weird.
But like, yeah, the thing that made it really incredibly apparent to me that like I was definitely not comfortable because honestly, after a while, you end up like building up this defense mechanism of just shutting those kind of feelings off. But like, I would always look in the mirror and just see myself and not see myself, so to speak. Like I would see, like I have a very androgynous body to begin with, so it wasn't like this horrible. Like I wasn't completely disgusted by myself. There are things that I do like about my body. But there's things that I hate about it, particularly like my genitals. I feel like my face could be fuller, my Adam's apple, things like that that just don't make me feel very comfortable. Especially like my facial hair. That's something I'm so conscious about. And it's just to have where all of a sudden I'm sitting there thinking about it. It wasn't actually until like my now ex-girlfriend was like, all she would comment about is how she liked male aspects of my body, so to speak, and how uncomfortable that made me because it was this constant reminder. And like she didn't like the fact that I shaved my body hair because I was disgusted by it, so naturally I just shaved it and just like whatever. And having where I was letting it grow for her sake and just how uncomfortable I was, it kind of just brought me to this place of like, I kind of end up like just accepting because I'm like, I'm making myself miserable trying to pretend to be someone that I'm not. And it wasn't until I definitely came to this epiphany after I got incredibly shit-faced after work. I went out with a bunch of my coworkers to this one bar that was like right down the road from the restaurant I worked at the time. And I remember getting so drunk. I'm in the car with this one coworker, and I just said, he's like, why are you so so miserable a lot? And I was just like, I wish my parents had spelled my name like, because my parents misspelled my middle name on my birth certificate. It was supposed to be Michael, but they misspelled it as one of the ways you could spell Michelle. And so I said, I wish my parents had named me like that was accurate or something like that. And then I remember puking in the parking lot. And that's about all I remember from that night.
Those are the main things to remember, yeah. Now,
So,
there's kind of like an interesting thing when it comes to anybody who's trans. I think I have like a question for them that I have seen people declare that they're trans as a result of mainly it's sort of like a mathematical equation to them, I guess, in a weird way, in that they sort of list all the masculine things that they're into and all the feminine things that they're into and all the masculine traits that they like to express and all the feminine traits that they like to express. And if one is higher than the other, and they don't outwardly express the gender that is more expressed in their interests and in what they want to express, then they call themselves transgender. And to me, I don't think that's. I think it's necessary that dysphoria be involved in transgenderism. God, that's a terrible name. That's a terrible word. But
it's okay.
I say that because I think when somebody does sort of like a mathematical pros and cons sort of equation on that, all that does to me is reinforce what I already see to be archaic gender roles in the first place. You know,
and
what I
I
mean?
actually agree with that. Like for me, the issue of being trans, like I can happily embrace things that make me feel masculine to make me. The issue for me is more like my body in terms of how I see it. And it's something that's something that annoys my therapist when he constantly challenges me on this. It's like, why do you focus on the physical aspects? I'm like, because that's what makes me feel uncomfortable and makes me miserable. It's not like I've always seen myself as a woman, like, and that's how it was supposed to develop. and I didn't, and trying to sit there and repress that part of my thoughts bothered me. Like that's what my issue was. I repressed it, and I don't see where, oh, I like cars and I like this and I like that and I like my more masculine things, therefore I'm not trans, or therefore I should have stayed a man. I don't think that's how it should be at all. I think for me personally, it's an issue of how my body looks. And it's why one thing I find very annoying is when someone who is trans or is trans sympathetic sits there and tells me that, why are you saying gender is a social construct? You know, then what's the basis for being transgender? Like, well, we know there's a reason why people are transgender. Like there's the brain analysis studies that show, like, okay, there was one that I was reading rather recently about how they did gray matter analysis of trans people and compared it to cis people, and found that trans men were more similar to cisgendered men and trans women were more similar to cisgendered women. Like, same thing that they found when Dr. Robert Sapolsky did this one lecture talking about same thing with the sperma terminalis and things like that.
Right.
There's a reason for this. Your brain is what determines your biological sex, from what research I can gather.
Yeah, it has, and while someone might be able to declare that there's a possibility that is something that's tied directly to your genes, it's something that hasn't been shown to be true yet.
Yes,
like that's,
and we don't know why that is the case. Right. We don't know why it's the case that happens.
We know that is the case. We don't yet know why. So to state that there is a reason why, and we know what it is to say something that's beyond our current capability to actually say.
And the thing is, I don't think it matters anyway.
Right.
Like, does that mean that I'm any less deserving of rights or responsibilities or respect?
Which no. honestly, that's kind of why I've never really been a fan of the
gay gene argument.
The what?
The gay gene thing.
Yes, I've never been a fan of that. To me, it does not fucking, and it also, I also hate that argument because, you know, as a bisexual male, to be told that it's not a choice, it's something that you're born with, or that it's not something that you're born with, it's fully something that you just choose. Both of these don't seem to mesh with me fully. Is kind of my thing. Sexual attraction is something that's just so much more fluid than that. But it's fluid, but not. It's a strange thing. There's a lot of different levels of sexual attraction.
To me, I think, like, if you were to act, like, when I look at people who I've dated or were sexually attracted to in years prior, I'm not sexually attracted to them now. And I think it's a combination of, you know, experience and perhaps biology. I think it's a combination of the two. I don't see anyone consciously making a decision to go, ooh, I like men or I like women. But at the same point in time, like, everyone has their type and preference. And so I can kind of see how it's a mixture of the two. I don't think it's something that's rigid, like it's a choice or it's biology. I think it could very well be I don't know it could, like, in terms of, I'm not a researcher, not something I've looked into, but from my experience, it doesn't seem like something that's rigid and set. Because I'm bisexual too. So it's like, the thing that's funny is, like, the women that I find attractive now, I would not have even touched where I was like a 15-year-old because I was the stupid 15-year-old. Like, I mean, that's just how it is. But the thing I find so funny is that when people sit there and tell me that why I think, like, getting mad at me because I think gender is a social construct, the reason why I think it's a social construct is that's what observable evidence says. Like, there are cultures in Polynesia where gender roles are completely reversed, like, where men are like what we would call feminine and women are what we would call masculine. There are cultures like in India that have more than one gender, like more than just two gender roles. And plus, what we associate with feminine now used to be masculine. Like, high heels used to be a masculine thing. Like, if you were a Persian soldier on riding a horse, you had high heels because you wanted to stay in the stirrups. So
sorry.
I don't. Yeah. Don't vape, children.
No. That's just a regular thing that happens because I had been smoking for the past like 4 years. So.
Oh, I know. I remember your videos where you always just.
I was fucking chain smoking. That's what I would do. And I made sure that I was smoking in all my videos too, because I wanted everyone to know that I had a problem.
You just wanted to look cool.
Ah!
The thing that's funny is like I actually like when I would watch like one of Skep's old videos and see him smoking there, it's just like not gonna lie, like I don't like smoke. Like the smell of cigarette smoke is just gross. But there's something about like his just charisma or something like that. I'm just like, this looks cool. Like,
Yeah, which is weird because Skep has a lot of creepy faces. So it's weird that he has a level of charisma to make himself look cool on camera, and at the same time, like if he ever smiles with his teeth,
yeah,
like he looks, that's a rape face and a half. That's what it is. It's really weird.
I feel bad talking about someone who is not on YouTube anymore. Though I did find a chance with his name.
He still pays attention. Skep's still paying attention.
Yeah, I know he has a channel, but it doesn't have videos or anything on it.
I'm not sure if that is Skep's channel or if that's
like
somebody else, but
yeah.
I know Skep is still online paying attention to what's going on.
That's the one thing that's funny with like this. Like I walked away and like honestly, my attitude about like making videos and everything, like like the one video that on my channel that has a crap ton of views, I'm sure you saw it. Mm-hmm. I didn't even think of making that at all, like until I saw like, oh, this has come up again. I probably should, like, I found it so funny that everyone did the evidence stance in regard to that. And, you know, what's so funny about that video is like, I have the analytics on that. Nobody watched that video to the end. Most people only watched it to like 3 to 4 minutes in and then left. And that's exactly why everyone's like, when I said to you on Skype, I'm like, how much do you want to bet someone calls me sweetie? Because they think, that's why, because they only watched it to like the 4-minute mark. Because I'm talking about like, these are the terms he used to talk to me while he's saying things like, oh, you weren't a lot of things you were the last time we talked, wink. And it's just like, this is why I'm creeped out by this.
Yeah. I honestly, like, I've talked to Coughlin on Skype before for long periods of time, really.
So have I before this, but not while I transitioned.
Right. And honestly, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. I still don't. And I haven't paid attention to a whole lot of stuff that's been going on. So there's probably stuff out there that might change my thoughts on the matter. But I know that he's extremely defensive, and other people who are putting forward notions of what's going on with him are also defensive.
Very defensive.
And
I kind of knew that was coming.
Don't want to make it as big a deal as it has become as well, which is it becomes a really complicated issue for me, because while I don't think anybody's trying to pull the wool over my eyes, so to speak, and lie about Coughlin because they have some sort of personal grudge against him or something along those lines, I don't think that's happening. But at the same time, knowing Coughlin and knowing him to the extent that I do still reserve judgment that perhaps something that happened was something that was misunderstood or something along those lines, that's still a possibility.
And that is like it could very well be the case for me, but like the reason I would put that video out there is, one, like I had every intention of not even going forward with that at all. Mm-hmm. It was not because I knew this was exactly what happened. Like I know Coughlin's a defensive person, and two, I knew that even if I came forward and showed the whole conversation, read out the whole conversation, explained like what it made me feel like, I knew that I would have people who would not believe it, not accept it, or sit there and tell me I'm being overly sensitive, because that's what happens when it comes as like a transgender woman. I've had, like, I explained to someone how like someone stalked me to my office and like grabbed my ass and tried to ask me out, and it was like, well, you should consider yourself lucky. I mean, look at you. It's just like, that's what I'm used to. So I knew that was coming, but I'm like, you know what? If I put this out there, at least people can, like, it kind of serves a purpose in that it's like, look, you can sit there and say you want evidence all you want. It's not going to be enough. And I knew right away that Richard was going to get defensive because, like I said, I've talked to him for a bit too, and I know that's the kind of person he is. There's not really, I didn't really do it because I wanted to hurt him. I did it because I'm like, people need to be aware that, like, this is things that can happen. You can, like, this is how he said stuff, and this is the way he talks to people. So it's a possibility. You shouldn't be sitting there screaming about evidence and then reject it when it's presented. And the thing is, I found it incredibly disheartening that people were sitting there on my video commenting like, "Oh, everyone's just trying to destroy Coughlin." I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not. Like, you can still be subscribed to him. You can. I'm still subscribed to him.
Yeah.
Like, I still watch his content.
And you know, it's just it's again, it has to do with, I'm not sure if there's a cultural thing, and I'm not sure if how Coughlin interacts with people is it's just something that he's always done, and whether or not he even knows that it could be taken in a way that's inappropriate. Like,
And that's what I think it is. I don't like when it comes to the cultural argument. Like, I talk to people in the UK. I've been to the UK, and I know that there are women out there who would agree with me that like they don't like being called sweetie. So
right.
I don't think it's necessarily a cultural thing. I think he might think that he's being nice and not realizing that that's the case, and that's probably what it is. And I don't. So I'm not going to sit there. I don't really want to talk about it too much. The main issue thing I found very funny in all of this was how many people, like on my analytics, the average watch time is like 3 minutes out of a 10-minute video. And it shows in that the way people commented about it and what they focused on. And that's one thing I found so hilarious about social media, because in terms of how people interact in real life, context gets thrown out the window. Not a lot, but it still happens. On social media, it gets completely thrown out of the window. Like, I have had people come to my comment sections and write "sweetie" just because they thought it would bother me. I'm like, well, I think it's disrespectful. Yeah. It's not the same as someone who is much older than me sending me a message in private. Like, there's a much different context. And it's something I find so weird about our interactions online is that we don't often just look at a small little piece and think we understand the whole picture. Like, how many people? Go ahead.
No, again, like, honestly, I wish that this wasn't as divisive as it was. Like, is kind of my main thing, because honestly, I've been doing my best for the past while now to stay out of just about all YouTube drama. Whenever it even gets brought up to me by like other people, I constantly try to shut it down and say that I don't want to hear it. And when it comes to Coughlin, who's somebody that I know and that I have associated with in the past, I care about whether or not he's doing inappropriate things. I just until something more
than that. Yeah, I understand completely. Like, that's completely fine.
Actually, like, comes out that's to a substantial level, because so much of it is so shady and gray. Like, I think somebody else brought up that Jenny McDermott said something about him being inappropriate, and now she's saying that she never said anything along of those sorts, and she sent Coughlin like a screenshot saying that you never said anything of those sorts, and then other people are saying, yeah, you did, and like, I don't know.
That's why I backed away from it.
Yeah, this is becoming kind of fucking crazy. I'm not doing this.
That's something I don't like. Like, that's something I don't like about this at all. It feels like a lot of people just like. I knew right away that video was going to get. My video was going to have that happen. It's why I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to sit there and get all those negative comments, I might as well put ads on it. Like, I might as well get something for my trouble. And that was all I wanted to say about it. Like, it's like all I want to say is like, this is what happened. And I thought about maybe doing a video going like, okay, so you guys say you care about this, and here you are, just like, you didn't even watch it. You didn't do this. And that was about all I wanted to say. Because, like, I don't care. Like, I feel like Richard was inappropriate with me, but that's fine. Like, people screw up. Like, yeah. I'm not, like, I don't sit there and get mad at people. Like, when, like, one of my friends who knew me before I transitioned accidentally uses my old name, and I know it's an accident, I'm not mad at them because I know people make mistakes. So I'm not really upset about it. And that's how I feel about this. Like, he made a mistake, but what annoys me is that people have this attitude that people, oh, they can never do this. And that annoys me.
It's never that they actually did say something inappropriate to you. It's just that you didn't understand it. And while that is a possibility, that's like you're taking something a little too seriously that it should, it's not something that you can determine merely from you or anyone else bringing up that something was said that they found it inappropriate, or something that was done that they found inappropriate. You don't know the situation. You're not privy to the situation. So before we
Yeah.
call anybody out for being a liar, and before we denigrate Coughlin as some sort of like, I don't know,
Yeah.
sexual harasser of all people in the world, it's important to gain some perspective on this and take stock of what you know about the situation. Is it enough to actually come to a valid conclusion?
And even if you watch my video, you said like, "Hey, I can see how you could take that as inappropriate."
Yeah.
And just said like, but I still don't want to sit there and label him a sexual harasser. That's fine. Like, I can respect that. What I find so funny is that people on the internet cannot respect things that disagree with them.
Yeah. Relevant to this, Flex, St. Patty's Day Massacre, he brought up that when he talked to Coughlin before all this stuff was brought up, Coughlin mentioned to him how he likes to address people with affectionate and respectful terms. The thing about that, and while that's true, and that's something that he's told me before as well, sometimes respectful and
affectionate don't go together.
Sometimes respectful and affectionate can be done without it being asked for. Is kind of like how I'll phrase that. You know what I mean?
The thing is, when I said, like, I have people who street harass me and call me a sweetie, and that's why I don't like that term, or like who call me darling, and they say it, and it's not in that term of endearment. Like, it's not just a term of endearment. Like, there is also a potential connotation to it that isn't a term of endearment. So it's why it's confusing. So like when it comes to that, I'm like, if you just want to call me miss or ma'am, that's fine. Like, that's respectful, and there's no sexual connotation to it. And so that's why I'm like, this kind of weirds me out. So that's why I'm like, I'm honestly willing to believe that like he didn't mean it at all. But like with all the message, like with all of that, I'm like, and that's the thing. Like when I look at like when I left the internet for a while, and then I remember I logged into Twitter for like the first time in like weeks, and I just watched like, I think it was like two people who are following, I'm not going to name them because it's not really important, who were fighting and complaining that they were harassing each other. And I'm just like, why the hell do I want to be a part of this? And that's why I made my one video. And I'm letting it go because, well, apart from me talking about it here, obviously. Right. But yeah, but like I don't want to talk about it because like I said my piece. There's much more important things. Like when you look at like YouTube users who have actually been successful, like who've gotten significant off, like when have you seen like Lacey Green make a YouTube drama video in like a while? Or
the only thing that I've seen her do in what can even be said to be somewhat recent terms was, and even then it's not that recent, was when she was addressing that one, I can't even remember his name, the guy who was doing prank videos where he was like grabbing women's asses. Yeah, that's the latest thing that I saw her do, and that
was like 2 years ago at least.
Was it 2 years ago or 1 year ago?
I think it was 2. It might be like a year and a half. I don't fully remember, but yeah, like it's not like I don't want to have like drama with people. Like it's why like I really could have cared less about like what's going on between JJ and Jenny. I could care less. The thing is weird though is I had like this one. The thing is funny is I'm now just reminded of this one weird thing that happened between me and Jenny on Twitter where she, like, I don't follow her, so I didn't know this, but she wanted to, like, she accused Diana Boston of dead naming me. Now, Diana Boston's a TERF. I think everyone here can agree to that.
We're all aware of that, yeah.
Yeah. Now, it's funny because, like, I know why Diana Boston is using my old username as pragmatic uselessness. But the thing is, I'm not going to call it dead naming because it's not a name I associate with my male attitude. But, like, I can see how Jenny got the idea of, I'm like, it's not dead naming. And I felt that was weird that, like, all of a sudden that was, like, something in my Twitter mentions because I was like, why do I have to talk about this? But, like, I could see where she could think that, but I don't consider it that. Like, I can tell that she's definitely doing it because she doesn't want to call me Sophia. Because that would mean acknowledging.
Likely. Honestly, like, I've gotten in so many arguments with Diana Boston about this kind of stuff. whenever I even just bring up like, because her whole thing is she's really into women's rights, but she doesn't want those women's rights to be extended to trans women. So whenever I would approach her about anything, like if in a comment section or on Twitter, I would just mention the fact that, okay, so what you're referring to, whatever it may be, applies to trans women equally. And she would just lose her shit. She wouldn't explain why she doesn't believe that's the case, but she would just deny that that's the case.
My personal favorite thing ever was the first time I ever said anything to her. Like, she wanted me to be on a podcast because I was making fun of MRAs. And I said, no, thank you. I don't want to be associated with a transphobe and a racist. Because, I mean, she called a Latino woman a word I don't want to repeat. Right. And you had her whole video about, what was it, Trayvon Martin? So it's like,
yeah,
I don't want to be associated with you. And
she's done other shit in the past. I remember when she got involved in the whole Palestine-Israel debate when that was hot, like a couple years ago.
God. That's something like
she's such like a huge Israel supporter, trying to say that like nothing Israel does is wrong, it's all justified, and everything that Palestine does is wrong, and that they're terrible people.
I think it's so funny is like half this stuff with YouTube drama, it's like, God, I actually would like to talk about Israel and Palestine now.
Yeah, Israel and Palestine's an actual like real, especially now, honestly. But yeah, like it's a real issue.
Can we start YouTube drama about this?
But the YouTube drama about it is just so ridiculous that it makes the issue look silly. Exactly. Like that's the terrible thing about YouTube drama, is that it takes serious issues and it makes them look superfluous.
Exactly.
Because it can be referred to as YouTube drama. Like that's
not only that, half the people on YouTube don't even know anything about anything. Like, I'm willing to say that most people who comment about things don't, like, they might, okay, I read 2 articles on the New York Times or something like that, and it's all well and good, but a lot of them, like, they don't have, like, I really wish Rob Unseen Perfectly was still on YouTube for the very reason that he would make a 45-minute video. Because it covers
issues and like, yeah, while being fairly entertaining about it too. I mean, yeah. I'm still friends with Rob on Facebook. I don't talk to him on Skype anymore, but regularly, I mean, he'll make little shots about current political issues, like maybe a paragraph, if something's going on. But generally, he tends not to comment on it anymore. And I think the main reason for it is that I think that's one of his triggers. And I don't, he hasn't said as much, but basically, as I understand it, the more he's on YouTube and having to explain what he sees as extremely simple issues to people, not that the issues themselves are simple, but that what people are arguing about is stupid. And completely.
That's ironically how I felt a lot of times.
Like the fact that he has to explain that stuff, and the fact that he's constantly engaging with people that he sees as vastly inferior intellects, constantly, like, I would put him in sort of his depressive mode, which would cause him to alienate people that he was friends with, and cause him to do self-destructive behavior. And so as a result, he just would not, he doesn't want to do it anymore, which I totally respect that fact. It's just, I just really wish that it was that if we didn't have Rob, at least have Skep still. But
well, I was thinking about commenting about certain political stuff, so hopefully I can fill that void. Because I don't want to just talk about trans stuff, because honestly, I feel like that's kind of like, for me, I'm still experiencing a lot of it, but like one of the videos I was thinking about making is like, please stop telling me I'm lucky I can't have a period. Like, please stop it. It's not fun. It's not something I want to go through. Like, and I hate it when people tell me they think I'm brave. Not because like it's an unsupportive thing to say, but like the people who tell me this are then the people who like, oh, here's this video I found. It's a prank. It's a hot chick with a dick. Ha! It's just like, yeah, this is not okay with me. Like, you can't say
Yeah.
you think I'm brave and then show no respect for why I'm brave in the first place.
Yeah. Eh, I think as you continue, and this is gonna be like sort of a cynical view, as you continue through your transition, it's only going to get worse for a while until it develops to a point that I guess you'll eventually come across a solid group of friends who accept you for who you are.
The thing is, I kind of already have that, so I
Right.
consider myself really lucky. Like,
And honestly, that's probably the best that it's going to be, is that you have that group of friends who you can reference back to, who you can think about, that like, not everybody's like this. This is not something that I have to consider as the whole view on me. There are people who accept me. I can get through this. Like, that's basically I think that's probably the best that it's going to
well,
be for a
the
lot
other
of
view that I
well,
learned to
society
take,
has like a major shift anyway.
because like I had a big issue at the start of the semester because like the thing that sucks for me in terms of my transition is my major is not one of the more popular ones in the business school. It's actually the least common one in the business school. So like all the classes that I have with the same people. So they're so often I would get misgendered and dead named, and even though it wasn't intentional, it would still hurt me.
Right.
But then I kind of realized that, hey, like I was getting really bitter and really defensive about it, and I kind of realized I need to back away and realize that, hey, these people don't have a lot of exposure to this stuff. And while yes, I can sit there and go, yeah, trans people exist since the beginning of time, which they did, it doesn't mean anything because they don't know. Like that, like that's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
And so,
I have friends who have very ignorant views about a variety of different types of people, and but they don't do it intentionally. They're not trying to
exactly.
be ignorant. And the main thing is, I guess it's summarized pretty well with one of my friends. His name's David. I've known him for about 4 years now, and he's very blunt about anything. And his whole thing is he wants to be respectful to everybody, but he just doesn't know enough to be respectful, and he understands this. So I think he
Yeah.
told me once while he was while we were carpooling to work, he said, if because I was bringing up an issue that I had with how a trans person was being treated at the facility that I work at. And he goes, I don't really know much about trans people. Do you think she'd be okay with it if I like went up to her and asked her questions? I'm like, I don't really think that she wants to be put on the spot as like a representative for trans people for you to analyze. I really don't think. Well, I mean, how else am I going to learn? I'm like, that's not really how you learn about it. That's just not.
Well, the thing is, like, I don't like being asked questions, but at the same point in time, like, if you ask me, like, oh, well, is this term okay? I don't mind that because I understand, like, they're not trying to be mean, they just don't know. And so, like, one of the things, like, I had someone who, had referred to trans persons as transvestite, and I explained, like, hey, that's a derogatory term. He goes, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. What do you call someone who's trans, like, who is this? I'm like, you call them transgender or trans for short, and that's fine. Like, he's like, oh, okay. And it was like, end of conversation. Like, there was no harm, nothing. And that's kind of how I feel like how I should handle things. It's like, I had someone who didn't understand, like, oh, so why are you so excited about hormones? And so, like, I explained, like, what they do and everything. It's like, oh, and I'm like, well, if that's a huge thing. I'm like, yeah, I have to read a whole pamphlet on, like, I read out the entire pamphlet in my one video, which is my favorite video I ever did, because I'm just sitting there going, like, my nipples still hurt thinking about this. But I had her read this, just like, oh my god, like, this is what you're going through to do this. Like, she now has like a much better appreciation for it by having that information. And while it might have been kind of awkward at first, we end up having a lot of like strange, like actual funny moments in it. So I don't consider it a bad experience.
Yeah. And
Like, as long as you're not asking me how all trans women feel, I
yeah,
don't think it's a problem.
like my whole thing is, okay, so I myself have, whenever I get into an issue trying to figure out things about anybody who's trans in the first place. Did my video go out? Because I was bringing up an issue that I had with how I'm gonna treated at the facility.
Is there a way you can check comments in this?
Oh yeah, there are people who are talking.
Oh, I know, but is there a way you could, you know? I don't know. I'm not opening any more.
Ah shit, my video cut out apparently.
Oh, does that mean we're no longer broadcasting, or?
It kind of like it's saying that it's doing that swirly circle thing, so I think it's a connection issue.
Oh.
I hear there.
Yeah, that was. Google hates us right now.
Yeah, they do.
I love Google Chrome crashes when I go in to start this.
For fuck's sake. I'm not having a problem with Google Chrome at the moment. It's the actual stream itself. God damn it.
Oh, I know. I was talking about myself. Like when I logged in, my browser just went unresponsive and just completely crashed.
No. This whole thing.
By the way, I'm sorry about bringing up the Coughlin thing. Like I was trying to, in my head, I was trying to make a point about how people interact online.
The point of this is whatever you want to talk about. So it doesn't.
I didn't really want to talk about it because like I feel like I was going to create more drama, but
kind of
wasn't
using it as an example, which is kind of why I felt the need to explain my position on that, at least as far as I did, because since it has been brought up, the thought is going to arise, and anybody who watches, like, well, I wonder what Lundy's thinking right now.
Yeah. Like for me, I completely respect your position, and I can completely understand if someone actually watched the full video and got the impression that, hey, I can see how you were uncomfortable, but X, and that's how that would have been acceptable to me. But people just watching 3 minutes of something and jumping to a conclusion, I found very weird.
Yeah, like that in itself is the crazy thing about at the very least your video. The problem is because it is such a divisive issue among people who follow Coughlin, for instance, or even JJ, honestly. Like, because it is such a divisive thing, like nobody actually cares to fully listen to anybody and what they have to say.
Yeah, and I think that's like what I was trying to get across, is that nobody actually listens to people anymore.
Yeah, and ironically, they were not listening to you while you were saying it.
Yeah, and I guarantee they're not going to listen to that while I said it here. That's why I'm like, I guarantee it's going to cause more drama, even though it wasn't my intent. My intent was to say, we need to listen to people. Are we broadcasting still or no?
No, it's still doing the damn thing. I can't fix it because I don't know how.
Well, the thing is weird is like I'm able to hear you.
Yeah, and I'm able to hear you just fine.
But
it's the actual YouTube thing.
Oh.
Like on YouTube itself, we're frozen with me kind of like looking off this way while fucking a swirly dot is right here.
Okay, so but you don't actually hear anything through the broadcast.
Right. I have it playing right now, and it's fucking frozen.
So I can say whatever I wanted right now.
Yeah, it won't be broadcasted. I'm not sure why. Because the thing says we're still broadcasting as far as the Google Hangout itself goes.
Yeah, I see the live sticker up at the top. I was like...
Yeah, so I don't know why it's doing this. I really don't.
Yeah, no.
Blah, whatever.